Although I had yelled at Chisom to leave, she didn't make a move. She just stood there, frozen, watching me until I broke down suddenly and started crying. Why aren't you leaving? I asked, my voice cracking as I sank into the plastic chair, my hands shaking a bit. Shame curled up in my chest like a fist, refusing to let go. She didn't say a word. Instead, she stepped closer to me, cautious, gentle, then did something I wasn't expecting at all. She crouched beside me, took my head softly into her chest, and began patting my head like I was a child in need of comfort. It's okay, Ronke, she whispered, her voice low and steady. I understand. Stop crying. I stiffened at first, surprised by the warmth of her body, this slow, rhythmic pat of her hand. Then I pulled back just enough to shoot her a look, tears still rolling down my cheeks. You don't understand, I said shakily. I'm only doing this to survive. I don't have any other skills. I didn't go to school, past junior secondary school. She interrupted me gently, her voice firmer this time. I understand. In fact, I understand more than you can imagine. I blinked at her, confused. What do you mean? I asked, my voice softer now, trembling. She took a deep breath, her eyes distant for a moment before settling back on mine. You see, Ronke, she began, I was into this line of business too, back in Abuja. That was how I made the money to start this new life of selling Akara I do now. I stared at her, stunned. You? I asked, barely able to process the image. You mean runs? She gave a slow nod, eyes never leaving mine. Yes, it wasn't easy, and I won't pretend it didn't nearly break me, but I did it. I had to, and I got out. That evening, I couldn't sleep. Chisom's confession washed over me like waves I wasn't ready for. The room was quiet, too quiet, and every time I shut my eyes, I saw her face again, that gentleness in her eyes, the way her voice cracked ever so slightly when she said, I did it too. Before she left my home, I had told her everything, my plans to stop, my fear of what would become of Orolua if she kept growing up in this slum. I told her how I had been saving, how far away my goal still seemed. When I mentioned I made 500 naira per person, she shook her head with what looked like regret in her eyes. Ronke, she said slowly, I have a way out for you. It may not be ideal, but it's better than what you're doing now. I looked at her, confused. Way out? She nodded. I cut ties with some of my old friends back in the day. But for you, I'm willing to reconnect. They know men, real clients, not these boys that toss 500 like they're doing you a favor. Her voice dropped lower, her tone serious. This is too debasing for you. If you must do this, then do it right. I'll show you how to focus on big clients, mostly politicians and big businessmen. They don't throw coins, but some of them are very heartless, dangerous even. And you know how it is. If anything happens, the law won't protect you. I swallowed hard, eyes wide. You'll have to be careful, she continued. But Ronke, that amount you're looking for to finally quit, you can make it in one night if you meet the right man. I shook my head, the tears already coming again. But why? I choked out between sobs. Why does it always have to be a man's world? She stayed silent, letting me cry, until I looked up at her, eyes red and raw. Sometimes I feel like I can't achieve anything big or groundbreaking without men's approval, I said, almost whispering, like the world will only listen to me if I strip something away. She didn't flinch. Instead, she cupped my face in her hands, warm, steady hands, and that made my heart tremble. I still hadn't forgotten the look on her face when I had kissed her earlier, the shock, the stillness. But now, her eyes weren't guarded. They were soft. I understand how you feel, she said gently. It feels like a woman can't have a breakthrough without putting something out for the male attention or gaze. She sighed, and her thumbs grazed my cheek like she wasn't ready to let go. But enough of that depressing talk, she added with a small, tired smile. I'll make some contacts tonight, and tomorrow we'll have a full plan, a real one, to get you out of this line of business. Then, as I sat there staring at her, unsure of what to say, she reached out again, slowly, and wiped something from the side of my lips with her thumb. Her touch lingered. Her eyes lingered longer. And she smiled. The following morning, she came to see me again. And this time, she came with news. I had barely finished brushing my teeth when I heard her soft knock. I opened the door to find Chisom standing there with a nylon bag in hand and a glint in her eyes. She didn't waste time. I made some calls, she said, stepping inside. And I got something. Something big. I narrowed my eyes at her. What kind of something? There's a major function coming up in Abuja, she said, lowering her voice like we were conspiring. One of those high-level international conferences. Politicians, wealthy global businessmen, oil magnates, diplomats, they'll all be staying at one of the top hotels for 2 weeks straight. She looked at me like she had just opened the gates of heaven. That's your gateway, Ronke, she said with quiet conviction. One night they could give you what 10 years of Oshodi street work couldn't. I sat down slowly, processing it. 2 weeks? I repeated, blinking. That's a long time. I know, she said, folding her arms, but it's a small price to pay for a full escape. I hesitated. And Orolua? I asked. Where will I leave her for 2 weeks? Chisom sighed and sat beside me. You'll have to figure that part out, love. You can't afford to be distracted while we're there. These kinds of opportunities don't come twice. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. My mind raced with worry. Since the day she was born, Ore and I had never spent even one night apart. She was like a second skin to me. Always underfoot, always clinging to my wrapper, always asking questions I couldn't answer. The thought of leaving her for that long squeezed my heart. But there was only one person I could trust. My mother, I said slowly. I'll take her to the village. Chisom nodded. That's the best choice. But I haven't seen her in 8 years, I murmured. She doesn't even know I have a child. Chisom touched my hand gently. Then it's time she knew. I made the trip the next day. It was a long, hot ride down roads that hadn't changed. As the bus pulled into my hometown, my stomach tightened. Everything looked familiar, yet distant, like an old photograph blurred by time. Walking into my childhood compound was like stepping back into a dream I had tried too hard to forget. The walls were still stained with the same reddish dust. The front porch still had the crack I tripped on as a child. The scent of burning firewood wafted from a neighbor's backyard. But my mother had changed. The moment I saw her, I felt like the ground should open up and swallow me whole. My throat tightened and I fought back the tears. She looked older than I remembered, much older. Her cheekbones jutted out sharply. Her eyes had sunken into her face. The strong, loud woman who used to chase us around with a cane now looked like she needed help standing for too long. This was what staying away too long did. Life doesn't pause for you. Yet when she saw me, her face lit up. She let out a joyful gasp and rushed over, arms outstretched. She enveloped me in a hug so tight I nearly lost my breath. My daughter, she cried. You've come back. I thought Lagos had swallowed you. I clung to her like a child, tears finally slipping down my cheeks. Beside me, Orolua stood shyly, watching. I knew the moment was coming. As soon as we were seated and the welcome joy had simmered, I broke the silence. Mama, I said softly, this is Orolua. She turned to look at the child. Her smile faded for half a second in surprise, but then returned wider. She's your daughter? She asked, almost whispering. I nodded. There was a pause, but not the kind I feared. She reached forward, touched Aurelua's cheek, then looked at me. She's beautiful, she said, just like you were at that age. I stared at her in disbelief. You're not angry? I asked quietly. She scoffed. Angry for what? You're alive. She's healthy. That's what matters. I didn't tell her the full truth. I couldn't. I only said I had a boyfriend who ran away when I got pregnant. She didn't press. She didn't even ask his name. She was just happy. Happy to have her daughter home. Happy to be a grandmother. And that was enough for me. After I had settled where Ore would stay for the 2 weeks, with Mama already treating her like a princess, Chisom and I set out for Abuja. The city buzzed differently. Cleaner streets, taller buildings, cold AC in taxis, people walking fast like they had urgent lives to live. We went straight to a boutique Chisom knew, a sleek place with mannequins that wore glitter like armor. We picked out clothes, gorgeous, revealing, dangerously loud outfits that hugged my body in ways that made me feel like a stranger in my own skin. Chisom watched me try on a black velvet dress with a slit that nearly reached my hip. Perfect, she said. You'll catch any man's attention. She paid in full. Cash. As we packed the clothes, she turned to me with a serious look. Ronke, she said, you'll have to act their class. That's the trick. Smile. Laugh at their dry jokes. Smoke if you need to. Drink slowly, never too much. And above all, never act desperate. I nodded, trying to absorb it all. She grabbed my wrist and added, most importantly, protection. Always. No excuses. I looked down at the package he handed me. And don't spend more than 5 minutes with them in the room. I blinked at her. 5 minutes? What if they want to talk or last longer? Chisom gave me a dry smirk. Most of them are married, old, and useless, she said. They won't last more than 2 minutes. And after that, you go. Don't linger. Don't sleep there. That's how you stay safe. The days at the very popular Abuja hotel were magnificent. Polished tiles that gleamed like mirrors, cold air conditioning that whispered wealth, uniformed staff who smiled too perfectly. Everything about the place screamed luxury. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a street girl. I felt like someone who belonged to a world she had only watched through bus windows. Of course, we weren't the wealthiest, so Chisom and I shared a room. It wasn't fancy by hotel standards, a basic double room, but it was clean, scented, and had a balcony that opened out to a garden view that looked like something from a movie. There were other ladies at the hotel too. Some of them were old friends of Chisom's. They walked with high heels and higher pride, their nails like talons, their wigs flawless, their perfumes thick enough to coat the air. I remember the first night vividly. The bathroom steamed as I walked out in my towel, hair damp, water dripping down my arms. I caught Chisom staring just for a second, but she quickly turned away and grabbed her phone like it had just buzzed. The following night, I came out again after a bath, towel clutched to my chest, and she was sitting on the bed by the window. This time, she stood abruptly. I need fresh air, she mumbled, stepping outside onto the balcony before I could say anything. I watched her through the glass door as she lit a stick and exhaled into the night sky. It wasn't hard to figure it out. The looks, the avoidance, the energy. I was certain she had feelings for me. But what I couldn't understand was, why hide them? She had made it clear from the beginning she wouldn't be participating. She was done with that lifestyle. She had only come to give moral support, and she meant every word. Even when the others teased her for coming to babysit, she laughed it off and told them, "This is my last job, guiding someone else out." So I let it be. I focused on the mission. 6 days passed, 6 days of dressing to kill, painting my face in careful strokes, wearing heels that hurt my ankles, and smiling across lobbies like I had nothing to lose. Chisom trained me to watch the room like a chessboard. She told me where to stand, how to smile, how to sip wine, and let my eyes speak instead of my lips. That night, my strategy finally paid off. I saw him near the bar, tall, dark, expensive. He had the kind of confidence that came from signing contracts worth billions. Our eyes met. I looked away, then looked again, a soft smile. That was all it took. He approached smoothly, like it was already decided. "I'm Zion," he said, "personal assistant to the governor of Anambra State." His cologne was strong, clean. His handshake was firm but not controlling. I smiled. Ronke. He didn't waste time. We spoke briefly. Surface talk about the conference, the hotel's overpriced food, before he whispered, "Can we talk in my room?" I nodded. Chisom had been right. He didn't last long. Barely 2 minutes in, and he collapsed beside me, breathing like someone who had just run a marathon. I was already thinking of how to clean up and leave when he turned to face me. Then it happened. His whole body seemed to break. Tears filled his eyes, and he started to cry. Real tears. I froze, unsure what to do. Then the words started pouring out. "They shot my colleague last week," he said, voice cracking. "It was supposed to be me. They mistook him for me." I blinked, unsure whether to console him or quietly slide out of bed. "I'm married," he continued, now openly sobbing. "I love my wife. I swear I do. But I don't even know who I am anymore." He looked at me like I was some kind of priest. "I'm a good man, you know. I didn't used to be like this. Do you believe me?" I nodded slowly. What else could I do? He kept spiraling. Everything changed. I started lying, drinking, doing this kind of thing just to fit into the circle. For power, for position. I hate what I've become. His words hit me somewhere deep. I understood. "I guess," I said quietly, "we all have to make sacrifices sometimes that we never imagined would be our story. And sometimes it really does feel like it's not us anymore. Like we're just watching ourselves from outside." He turned to look at me. His eyes widened a little, like I just said something profound. "I wonder what your own story is," he said softly, a sad smile on his face. "Why this line of work?" I gave him a gentle, practiced smile. "I think I need to start going. I have other things to handle this evening." He nodded, but before I could move, he touched my hand. "What if I could change your life forever?" I froze. "What?" "I want to do something that makes me feel human again. What if I gave you enough money to stop this? Right now. But you have to promise me. Never come back to this. Ever." My heart stopped. This was it. The dream. To never have to sell my body again. To go back to Oregon. To start that Akara business. To breathe again. He looked at me with pleading eyes. "How much would it cost?" he asked. "To buy your way out?" He shook his head slowly, emotion thick in his throat. "I feel so bad about my choices lately. And doing this for you. It would feel like redemption." Later that evening, I found Chisom by the back of the hotel, sitting alone near the pool with a half-empty glass of wine and a cigar in her hand. The pool lights reflected in her eyes, and her face glowed gold under the ambient lighting. She looked lost in thought. I smiled as I hurried towards her, heart still pounding from what had just happened. Chisom, I said, almost breathless. You won't believe it. My dreams came true. She turned to me, eyebrows lifting in curiosity. What happened? I sat beside her and lowered my voice. I collected more than enough. It's done. I can finally start my life with Oregon. Something clean, something real. Her face softened. She took a slow drag of a cigar and exhaled into the night sky. I'm so happy for you, she said sincerely. So I guess we won't have to wait for the full 2 weeks. I nodded, smiling wide. We'll leave for Lagos tomorrow. But even as I looked at her, my joy simmering beneath my skin, I knew something was wrong. Her eyes were distant. She took one last drag and threw the cigar into a puddle. The east was sharp in the quiet night. Then she turned to me, forcing a smile. I'm cold, she said. Don't you want to go back to the room? I nodded. We stood and walked back to our room in silence. Back in the room, I took my bath first. I scrubbed slowly, letting the warm water calm my nerves as if I could wash away the weight of the last few days and the last few years. When I stepped out, Chisom had already gathered her towel and was heading into the bathroom. She didn't say much, just gave me a small, unreadable smile and closed the door behind her. I sat on the bed, legs crossed, staring at nothing for a long moment. Then I stood. Something in me wouldn't sit still. I crossed the room slowly, the silence louder than ever, and without overthinking it, I pushed the bathroom door open. She hadn't locked it. Steam clung to the walls. Her back was to me, shoulders bare, the curve of her spine glistening under the shower's drizzle. She turned sharply when she heard the door. Our eyes locked. Her lips parted slightly, stunned, and for a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then, as if yanked back to reality, she spun around and grabbed her towel, wrapping it tightly around herself. Ronke, she said, breath quick, eyes wide. Please, just give me a minute. I stepped in slowly. Why are you avoiding me? She looked away. I'm not. Yes, you are, I said firmly. Since Lagos, since the hotel. You keep looking at me like you want me, but then running every time I get close. Her silence was enough of an answer. You have feelings for me, I said quietly. Ronke, she whispered. Please, just step out. Let me finish washing up. I hesitated, her face still soft in the mist, still so beautiful. Then I nodded, turned slowly, and walked out. But my heart was thudding. I didn't sit this time. I paced. When she finally came out, still wrapped in the same towel, her hair wet, face unreadable, she didn't look at me right away. She sat on the edge of the bed. I joined her, close, but not touching. She took a breath, then another. I do, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I find myself attracted to you in ways I don't even want to admit. I turned to her. But? Her eyes glistened. But we can't act on it. Why not? Her fingers tightened around the edge of the towel. Because I have an STI. I blinked. What? I breathed. She met my eyes finally. HSV. I got it during the years I was still doing runs. I didn't know for a long time. One guy gave it to me. I think he knew, but didn't care. Silence stretched like glass between us. She exhaled. I manage it now. I take meds. I barely get outbreaks. But it's still there. I didn't want to hide it from you. And I definitely didn't want to put you through that. I was quiet for a long moment, processing, feeling the weight of her truth, feeling her shame, her fear. Then I moved closer. Chisom, I said softly. That's not the end of the world. She turned sharply to me. I mean it, I said. We could still explore in safe ways. You've done everything right. You take your meds. You're careful. And above all, you told me. She shook her head. You don't understand. No, I said. You don't understand. I've sold my body to strangers for 500 naira. I've walked Oshodi streets praying I don't get pregnant again. I've risked worse for nothing. But this, with you, this would be something real, something kind. Her face cracked. And I'm not asking for a miracle. I want to choose you. Even if we don't kiss tonight, even if we don't touch for a long time, just let me choose you. She stared at me like no one had ever said anything like that to her before. Then, quietly, she leaned her forehead against mine. You're mad, you know that, she whispered with a trembling smile. I laughed. Probably. We sat there in silence. Towels, damp skin, open hearts. Nothing more, nothing rushed. But in that moment, we had already said everything. And when we lay side by side that night, not as clients or workers or survivors, but as two women finally choosing each other, there was no shame, no guilt, only hope and two women in love.